visualize it, visualize success, visualize being in that beautiful loft, that unit in the penthouse high rise. Sure, you're going in and you're protected, okay? From a legal standpoint, from just a business investing standpoint, you want to make sure that you're investing in your real estate in a way that is getting you on a great legal foundation. Feel a lot better with your investment, especially if you're looking right now, and especially if you're like under contract and you have your due diligence period. Hello and welcome to the show. My name is RJ Curington. You're listening to Curington Now. I'm a real estate attorney, estate planning attorney, business law attorney at my firm, Curington Law. And what I do is just really help investors, entrepreneurs, business owners, professionals build wealth and protect their wealth. And this podcast is fantastic because it talks about those things for investors, professionals, business owners, giving them information that can help them build their empire and do so mindfully. Mindfulness is just so important in this day and age. And so this is what this podcast promotes. All right. So really, really glad that you're listening. We love all of our followers. Really, really, really push this out to friends and family if you find this valuable. We're really talking about high level things that are said and spoken about in a digestible way, very quick, very easy to learn and listen. And, we're always open to comments and questions. So always feel welcome to reach out. All right. Now, with that said, we're going to dive right into it. Okay, some of the things that you need to know. First of all, congratulations on even thinking about it, because the thought of it is what is the thing that's going to get you to the end goal. Visualize it, visualize success, visualize being in that beautiful loft, that unit in the penthouse high rise. Sure, you're going in and you're protected, okay? From a legal standpoint, from just a business investing standpoint, you want to make sure that you're investing in your real estate in a way that is getting you on a great legal foundation so that you're not down the road surprised with items that just overlooked during the due diligence period. So we're going to talk about that. And at the end of this podcast, you'll feel a lot better with your investment, especially if you're looking right now, and especially if you're like under contract and you have your due diligence period. All right. So it's going to be different for every state. So, I'm licensed in Illinois, New York, Indiana, and Florida. So it's going to like be geared a little bit towards that. If your state's different, that's fine, but it's generally the same principles. All right. It's in the due diligence portion. So first, depending on your goals. So if it's a primary residence, it's going to be different than an investment property. But if you have it as a primary right now and then out or something like that, these are things that you want to know as well. Some of the things that I'll talk about. All right. But first and foremost, you're going to want a full scope of the condo itself. All right. So the homeowners association, or HOA. All right. You're going to want the documents. They usually have a package of documents, including the bylaws. Okay. The rules and regulations. Those are going to really talk about the governing body of the association, the board, some of the rules involved. We'll talk about the rules that you'll need to look into specifically, depending on your goals. But that's what will have a list of all those things. Sometimes they're a little bit antiquated. Sometimes they're a little bit more modern. But you'll want to use those because those are what govern. Those are what runs the condo. All right, and the unit owners in the condo. Bylaws, rules, and regulations. All right, you're going to also want to have the meeting minutes. Okay, so with that board of governors, or board of members, they're going to have meetings, and they're going to be meetings every month, every week, whatever. And you're going to want a full scope of those meeting minutes that discuss all the things discussed in those meetings. So they'll talk about different capital expenditures that are going to be made during the year, or things that are going to be a pending issue, potential assessment increases, violations that are happening, litigation that's happening. It's going to detail all of that. So you're going to want like a month or 12 months worth. More is better in this scenario. Sometimes it may not be a well managed HOA, homeowners association. It may be smaller, maybe a group of 4 or 5 people. All right. But they're, depending on how well they're managed, they will have these meeting minutes and you're going to want to review those. All right. Another thing you're going to want to make sure of is the reserves. All right. And the budget. All right. So these things are, obvious. You want to make sure that the condo association, the HOA, has enough in reserves to cover a special assessment that arises during your time in the property. If they're underfunded, all right, it could be a problem later down the road because they don't have money. And so where are they going to get the money? From the unit owners. All right. So those could be problems down the road that you want to avoid going into your unit. All right. So, we talked about the bylaws, the rules and regs, the meeting minutes, the reserves and budget and financials. Are you going to want to make sure that the seller is also paid off of their assessment? So paid assessment letters is what you want to request, and 22.1 disclosures are just disclosures disclaiming that there's been special assessments, there hasn't been any problems with the association that would get you in trouble. Okay. All right. All right. Another thing you want to make sure you know is the assessment, the monthly assessment, and make sure that's clear. Typically, that's in the listing. This is for sellers as well. So sellers, just be sure you have all this information. For the buyer, it makes the process a lot more smooth. All right. Condo estoppels, things like that. Just make sure you have all those things. And with the rules and regulations, you want to make sure that you have favorable rules towards renting. All right, or just knowledge of the rental situation. Are they allowing short-term rentals, long-term rentals? All right, what's their definition of short-term, long-term rentals? That could invest your investing potential or goals that you have in the future to rent out the property. All right, sometimes in smaller HOAs, you're able to maybe vote on the rules and things like that to have them amended, but for the most part, you're going to be locked into those rules for the time being. All right, so the storage unit and the parking space, make sure you know if those are deeded or assigned. All right, if it's deeded, it's likely going to be taxed as well. So, that's important to know. And then assigned, you want to know how much the owner pays for that per month, etc. All right, and the same with the storage as well. All right. A lot of these things you're like really gonna kind of feel that you need to know. So just be sure that you're going with your gut. The next thing is the inspection. All right. So the inspection is warrants a whole episode for inspectors and things like that. But when you're inspecting, you want to make sure that you know the water intrusion, things like that, the ceilings. Just make sure everything's tidy, and getting a history of the leaks and things like that in your unit. You want to make sure the cooling works and has been serviced, who services it, how regularly it gets serviced, things like that. You also want to know about the plumbing, the electrical. You have a balcony or something like that, making sure that those outlets work with the electrical. And then, GFCI, all of those things. You want to make sure that all of those plugins work, and you can do that during your inspection. So really do a deep dive in your inspection if you're not buying it as is. It's okay if you're not buying it as is, but just like having an inspection period is going to be very, very beneficial for you. Okay. And then last but not least, you want to make sure that you can have your pet in the unit. All right. We love our pets, pet dogs, pet cats, pet rabbit, pet mouse, whatever your pet is. The rules will stipulate like what pets are allowed, the sizing, all of those things. And then, fees associated with pets. And then additionally, while we're talking about fees to transfer, fees to enter in the property, move-in fees, all those things. All right, you're going to get that in like some sort of moving or move-in package if it's a larger HOA, maybe not for a smaller HOA. But with that said, we've talked about really everything here. I kind of gone over what I was going to talk about, but there's so much more, and we'd love to talk with you about it. So feel free to reach out. But we've talked about things to know and things for your investment in your unit in the condo. So we've talked about rules and regs, we've talked about bylaws, we've talked about meeting minutes, we've talked about the rental restrictions, we've talked about the inspection, we've talked about our pets and having our pets in the unit. All right, so you're covered for the most part. And if there's anything that I missed, all right, just feel free to comment, post. I know, for different states there are different rules and things like that, and different things associated with condo units. But if there's anything I missed, please feel free to comment in the comments section, or whatever service that you're listening from YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, etc. All right. So you can find me on Instagram, LinkedIn at Curington Law, all right, RJ Curington. All right. And we're also at Curington Title. So feel free to reach out. I'm here for you guys. And if you have ideas for different podcasts, feel free to reach out. We're always trying to, be innovative and talk about things that people want to know. All right. So with that said, go out and buy your condo and live in it and enjoy it. All right. Knowing that you've done your due diligence. All right. RJ Curington signing out. Disclaimer here. This was not to establish a client-lawyer relationship or provide any legal advice. This is just general knowledge from my heart. All right. And that's public. All right. Thank you.